I want to go ahead and introduce our topic for the day. I want to introduce our guest. I'll start with our guest. I have Peter Laudengard with us from the team at Mixpanel, and Peter's going to walk us through 2024 benchmarks, a journey through product metrics. Now, a lot's happened over the last couple years, and the whole point of today's session is to see how things have changed. If we look back to 2022 to 2023, what are the big differences? Pretty much now we're in the middle of 2024. This is the first time where we can really evaluate all of 2023 and how things have changed from the previous year. Well, we're going to get into what those changes were like and what this might mean for you as a product person now. And so, again, I have Peter with me. Peter, it's awesome to have you. Thank you so much for being a part of this with us.
Yeah, thanks so much, Mike. Excited to be here.
What I'm going to do, I know, Peter, you've got a presentation and you could go ahead and present. I'm going to fade to the background here, but I'm going to come back towards the end and I will help with audience questions.
Great. Awesome. Thanks, Mike. Hello, everyone. Welcome and thank you for joining our webinar. And thank you to Product Collective for getting this set up. Today, we'll be talking through Mixpanel's 2024 benchmarks report, just like Mike said. My name is Pete Laudengard, and I'll be your host today. I work on our customer success team at Mixpanel. I've been here for almost 4 years, and I've been able to work with essentially every type of Mixpanel customer. So that includes companies ranging from 10-person startups to our largest enterprise accounts, as well as in pretty much every vertical that we touch and the different verticals that we'll be covering today. So I'm really excited to talk to you about our benchmarks report today, because in working with all of these customers, I've definitely seen how knowing how you measure up to your industry is just so important in understanding your users and at the end of the day for building the best product you can. So today we'll cover some key takeaways from the report, and then we'll get into trends we're seeing around the 3 core metric categories, which are acquisition, retention, and engagement. And then we'll wrap up with a discussion on how marketing plays into product benchmarks as well. And as Mike said, we'll throw in some polls along the way to just kind of keep you engaged on thinking about the various metrics we're covering. Great. So to set the stage for this report, we want to take a step back and acknowledge 2023 was really tough for most of the tech industry. So this makes data all the more important to help us understand what is happening in our industry, in your industry, contextualize it with data, and ultimately move forward. So despite those challenging times in the industry, at Mixpanel, we saw our customers really making the commitment to being data-led organizations more than ever. So let's take a look at some numbers behind that statement. So this is just some numbers on the growth within Mixpanel that we saw. So 56% growth in reports generated using Mixpanel, 25% increase in companies, 19% increase in number of people who viewed Mixpanel reports, which was up to 406,000 in 2023. And then on a per company basis, there were about average of 128 reports generated per company and 16% increase in that number year over year. So just practicing what we preach in terms of looking at our own data. And before we get into kind of the meat of the benchmarks report, here's a quote from Andrew Chen, general partner at A16Z, that kind of articulates how important benchmarking is. So industry benchmarks are critically important for companies of all sizes to understand. Knowing what good and great look like helps teams set goals, spot areas for improvement, like product engagement or top of funnel reach, and then allocate those resources efficiently. So without further ado, let's get into the details of our research. So in our research, we compiled the key metrics we'll be digging into in a moment into 6 different industries. So technology, which includes B2B SaaS companies, as well as other consumer apps that don't necessarily fit into one of the other categories. Media and entertainment, fintech, e-commerce, healthcare, and then gaming as well, which includes anything from video games, mobile gaming, word puzzles, all the way to sports betting apps. So next, here's a quick note on how this analysis was compiled. Our analytics team aggregated and anonymized 2022 and 2023 customer data from the key industries we selected and sent this into a massive Mixpanel project where we built Mixpanel reports to calculate all of these various benchmarks and slice and dice that by industry. So before we get into the specific metric categories, let's take a look at the 3 kind of main takeaways from what we saw. Number one, growth rates really varied widely across industries. It seems that the era of relentless product growth definitely started to slow in 2023, with some industries seeing low or even negative user growth in the last year. But that being said, the top 10% in each industry show that while growth is more challenging than it used to be across verticals, it's not out of reach. Now, second, in 2023, the average week 1 retention rate across industries fell from 50% to 28%, so a pretty significant dip. None of our focus industries saw their retention increase in 2023, which is really a reflection of a product environment where competition is fierce and product builders are increasingly challenged. So third, the top 10% performed more than twice as well as the average company. Across industries, the best performing companies, and we looked at that as the 90th percentile or top 10% statistically, enjoyed a great growth rate of 6% compared to the overall cross-industry average growth rate of 2.4%. And users spent almost 3x more time on these apps and sites than they did on average performing apps and sites. So just to add some color to how those top performers looked. So now that we've kind of set the stage with the high level trends, let's get into the specific categories. So our first one here is acquisition. In other words, how many new users a product gains over a period of time. So by tracking acquisition, product builders, as you all are familiar, I'm sure, are able to see whether or not a product's user base is growing. That really top of funnel, what the impact of marketing campaigns are, and what percentage of your user base is made up of new users, which is really important to understand your whole user life cycles. So as we mentioned, this is the first of our polls. So I'll launch that. Wanted to just get a sense, what do you think the percent decrease of media and entertainment's growth was from 2022 to 2023? So great, I see some answers flowing in, and it looks like most folks are saying 50%, some votes for down 85%. Give it another second. Great. So yeah, it looks like about 61% of you said 50%. And the correct answer is actually C. So for media and entertainment, the drop, C, from 4% to negative 1.5%. So for media and entertainment, the drop in growth may signal a return to kind of post-pandemic norms. So couple that with disruption caused by the Disneys of the world breaking off and starting their own streamers, and many media and entertainment folks did have a rough year in terms of growth. So We've seen demand for streaming entertainment return to kind of more normal levels with more conventional levels of growth from kind of pre-pandemic levels. For some services, that has meant a loss of subscribers, so this category is not necessarily shrinking, but yeah, like I said, returning to those pre-pandemic levels. Moving right along, so looking across all industries, we saw an average growth rate of 2.4%. However, this varied from a negative 1.5% for media and entertainment to a 6% in gaming. So technology was another industry that didn't fare great in 2023, which Deloitte's analysis on 2024 technology industry outlook also showed. So that high interest rates, worries about the potential of a slowing economy, geopolitical challenges, this kind of all contributed to a slight weakening of global tech spending in 2023. Interestingly, though, financial services using Mixpanel enjoyed a 100% growth increase from 1% in 2022 to 2% in 2023. So despite a 50% drop in fintech year-on-year funding, as reported by CB Insights, they were still able to show that level of growth. So yeah, that's our kind of numbers on acquisition. Despite growth varying widely across industries, what's interesting is that we saw that, like we were talking about, the top 10% in each of these industries enjoying a growth averaging about 6% in 2023. So that's 3 times higher than their median peers. Even media and entertainment, which we had saw that negative growth in the previous slide, the top 10% in this industry did see 5% month-on-month user growth. So this data shows that growth, although challenging in a tough environment, is indeed still possible. Moving along to continue talking about acquisition, looking at growth from a different angle, we noticed that growth in mobile device space outperforms the desktop experience by a bit. Something product builders who are looking to spur growth, this could definitely benefit focusing on that mobile experience. So this growth can be attributed to the increase in global mobile usage, better and cheaper connectivity options, and end user mobility. So one exception is in e-commerce, where perhaps desktop shopping experience is still ahead in that category. So though the share of mobile in e-commerce has been steadily climbing, it still lags a bit behind the other categories. Mobile gaming, on the other hand, currently accounts for approximately 51% of total video game revenue worldwide. So that's quite a big share and a big shift in that industry. Now let's take a look at how one of our customers, Billionaire, leveraged Mixpanel to help with their growth in the last year. So Billionaire started using Mixpanel in 2022. The product team uses Mixpanel to better understand how customers use its app, prioritize its product roadmap, and quickly identify and fix bugs that cause churn and prevent users from placing bets. So the marketing team there uses Mixpanel to better understand user cohorts, optimize digital advertising campaigns, and improve user acquisition as a whole. So the goal is to create a seamless customer experience that starts with marketing and extends into Billionaire's app. And Billionaire has been able to use Mixpanel funnels to understand how new users discover Billionaire. For example, whether they arrived from a referral link, a paid advertising campaign, or from one of their organic social media campaigns. So this insight has helped their marketing team to refine their user acquisition tactics and achieve a return on marketing spend, and has contributed to a 15% increase in daily active users over that period. So really exciting stuff. So now that wraps up our section on acquisition. So we'll move right along to retention trends. So in retention trends, as most of you probably know, retention can be kind of that silent killer. Your team may see huge gains in new user adoption from a certain campaign or new feature updates. But if you can't nail down retention, your MAU just won't sustainably grow. This was definitely an area that many struggled in 2023, but is all the more important to focus on to get the most long-term ROI out of your acquisition strategies. So going to our next poll here. One moment, let me find polls. Great. So would love to this change gears a little bit. We're gonna put it to you. What is the kind of retention metric that you're focusing on today? Is it retention? Or is it stickiness? Are you aware of stickiness? What stickiness is? Both, neither. And as I let the results trickle in, it's looking like a pretty even split between retention, both, and neither. So yeah, looks like stickiness wouldn't necessarily be the key goal, but yeah, so kind of retention or both is the leader here. So why I use that to set the stage, I wanted to jump into our first retention metric here. So while we did see week one retention across all industries fall, it's important to know what retention bucket you should be monitoring. So given this, it's important to pair retention analysis with kind of other types of analysis. For instance, you can look at the number of active days for core users in a 30-day period to assess like what retention or engagement interval makes sense for your product. So, you know, if it's 4 times in a month, 4 days out of the month, it's might be weekly. If it's 25 days out of the month, it's probably a daily active user. So additionally, you can make user lifecycle analysis in Mixpanel to make a complete picture of your active user base. So in other words, if MAU is strong, but retention looks poor, maybe this is because you have kind of that steady dose of new users, but those users aren't retaining ultimately. So just adding some color to this dip that we saw. Among other things, retention can help inform a product's continuous value to its users. So this value differs from industry to industry, obviously. For example, in the technology sector, retaining users indicates ongoing adoption and essentially satisfaction with a product or a service. It's crucial for assessing the success of product updates, feature releases, and getting that sense of the overall end user experience. On the other hand, for the healthcare industry, retention metrics help assess how well patients adhere to treatment plans, or how much they're sticking to coming back to their doctor's appointments. As they use these health apps and stay engaged, a higher retention could indicate improved patient involvement and potentially even better health outcomes. Versus, gaming companies, player retention is fundamental for sustained monetization. Understanding how long players stay engaged and continue spending within a game, that helps optimize in-game purchases, advertising strategies, and overall revenue generation. And what it comes down to is, products that fail to retain users will eventually struggle with the rising costs of user acquisition, and eventually their ultimate survival to bring value. So another important metric when it comes to measuring retention is going back to that poll question is stickiness, which not only captures if users are returning to your product, but the intensity or frequency of their return. So stickiness, in other words, is most commonly calculated using a DAU over MAU ratio, or WAU over MAU ratio. And the higher the ratio, the more frequent your unique users are coming back on that more frequent basis. So, what percentage of your monthly active users are coming back on a daily basis, essentially. The gaming industry is a typical example wherein a new user acquisition is a non-issue almost, but most often they struggle with both retention and stickiness, as seen from low 27% ratio in our data. In terms of some tips for how you might tackle that metric, like we were alluding to, it's great first step to identify your target stickiness ratio. It may be obvious what the usage interval of your product should be. For instance, if your B2B tool that most end users log into once a month, it doesn't make sense to measure DAU over MAU. It might be MAU over QAU, if that makes more sense for what you expect users to do in your product. And then you can dig into which users fit that usage pattern today and learn more about them by doing cohort analysis in Mixpanel and seeing how these different groups of users perform through kind of key workflows in your app. And once you understand that journey by exploring these users in our funnel or flows reports, you can start to brainstorm how you can bring other users onto that same path. Oh, oops. So yeah, now going to another customer example, the CEO of HubSpot, Yamini Ragan, puts it plainly, stating that although it's important to sell, customers need to continue to get value. When customers make the decision to stay with you, it's really a big indicator that they're getting value. So thus they see retention as the singular metric that measures the net of acquisition, if that makes sense. And we have a link to the source interview there once we send out the materials after this presentation. Great, so that's wrapping up retention. And for our final metric category, before we go on to kind of how marketing metrics play into all this, let's talk about engagement. So engagement is how you measure what it means to be a casual, core, or power user. And what does that level of behavior look like in terms of breadth or depth of engagement? In other words, are there successful users that engage very deeply with one part of your app? Or does a user need to use multiple pieces of functionality to get value and retain? So let's switch gears a little bit and go back to another poll. And let's look at when are customers most engaged with gaming products. So just a quick one-off example of a dimension of engagement that you can look at about an industry or company. I'll give it a minute. Thank you for engaging in the poll questions. Looks like the vast majority of you are all answering Friday, a couple Tuesday guesses. And what we found from roll is the 18% of you that guessed Tuesday were correct. So somewhat surprising answer maybe. On Mondays, we see digital health services spike, since some providers are like pharmacies or medical specialists are generally closed during the weekends. Saturdays see users relax with shopping, media, and also take advantage of their day off to address financial issues. So that's where we also saw fintech usage. But yeah, just to kind of prime the pump on how you can look at engagement. Now we're looking here at kind of number of events per user in each of these categories. Events were defined as meaningful actions like a page view, a download, a click, or a share, and they're not industry specific. So as you can see, all sectors except healthcare tend to have some median core group that engages somewhat infrequently on their app, and then a big spike of power user cohorts of people that are deeply engaged. So that deeply engaged group is great to study for insights on what makes them a successful user with your platform. So did they activate and onboard easier? Were they the audience for a certain A/B test, or are they a certain tier of user? So getting that baseline of what it means to be a power user is a crucial first step before getting to converting other users to that level of behavior. Among other things, engagement can help inform a product's depth of value to its users. So let's take a look at a couple of examples. In media and entertainment, monitoring engagement metrics is essential to understand how viewers interact with the content. It helps media and entertainment companies assess the relevance of their content, identify popular genres or formats, and basically enhance viewer satisfaction. Similar in the e-commerce industry, measuring engagement revolves around product pages, where page views, click-through rates, and conversion rates help companies understand how users engage with their product listings. This guides improvements in product presentation, your UI, so your designers and your PMs assessing the UX, and marketing strategies to boost sales and acquisition. And then in financial services, tracking engagement reveals how users interact with the different features of the financial apps. So this provides insight into feature popularity, usage patterns, and helps fintech companies optimize their platform for a seamless experience. So that's kind of what we found in our research. And now to close out the metrics session of this presentation of acquisition, retention, and engagement, let's take a look at another customer story. So as we all know, engaged users tend to drive more revenue, especially if their activities tied to outcomes such as purchases, signups, or subscriptions. Keeping users busy can be good to a point, but what products across all industries really want to welcome is valuable engagement that helps convert casual users to returning or power users, or into paying customers or subscribers. So Quick Check implemented Mixpanel in 2020 so the team could gain an understanding of how customers use their product. Before Mixpanel, despite tracking in-app events, their existing stack of BI didn't quite give Quick Check the cohort level view they needed to optimize their user onboarding funnel. So today, Quick Check can use Mixpanel to answer key business questions on a daily basis. The team uses Mixpanel's powerful self-serve analytics to monitor metrics critical to product growth, like the conversion rate for their activation funnel, the time it takes, sliced and diced by platform and by marketing channel and all of that, and then user journeys that are most likely to result in conversion, like you can see in the flows report there. So now that we've looked at those key benchmark metrics, let's take a peek at how marketing performance fared in 2023. And we'll kick off with another poll. I would love to hear, does your marketing team use a product analytics tool? And let me find my polls again. So there we go. this is something we're seeing more and more of wanting to tie that full user journey of, top of funnel acquisition to, how do those users that came from different channels end up performing in once they land in your product. So yeah, by combining marketing performance with product analytics, you kind of unlock a whole new world of what types of users your acquisition strategies are actually leading to. Great. So it looks like most of you said yes, or 56% said yes. So one no and a few not sure. So great to see that about a little more than half of you are using product analytics. Great. And now we'll go on to taking a look at the marketing performance analytics that we took a look at. So at a time when marketing budgets are being cut and marketers are under pressure to prove ROI of their campaigns, benchmarks provide a valuable reference point on what generating good and great reach looks like. So Mixpanel took a stab at analyzing marketing performance using that same anonymized customer data, focusing on traffic growth, session duration, paid ads conversion across those 6 key industries. So let's take a look at some of those findings. Christian Salem, who's the CPO at Consensus, shared that they use Mixpanel to break down their retention report by acquisition channel. So this helped them see where their best and highest retained users are actually coming from, and if there was a correlation there. And this led them to focusing their efforts on their most successful end users and marketing channels. That resulted to a significant increase in their retention when they knew kind of where to focus those efforts. With an event-based data model, you can still measure all the same acquisition and conversion metrics as kind of legacy web analytics, but you also get the added bonus of seeing engagement, retention, and subsequent conversion events in the connected web or app products. So this unlocks a whole new dimension to both understand your channel's ability to contribute to growth, but also lead to growing that base of more successful users. Great. So now to the numbers. For traffic growth, we observed that mobile remains dominant across all industries. The month-on-month growth for mobile across almost all industries grew in 2023, whereas traffic from desktop and laptop computers stayed mainly flat or even dipped. So one exception was media and entertainment, which finished the year with a lower traffic than at the start on both mobile and non-mobile experience. So this coincides with what we saw for media and entertainment industry, what their acquisition was, as we were talking about earlier, having a big dip of negative 1.5% in 2023 when compared to a 4% growth rate in 2022. And looking at the average session duration numbers, the mobile experience is definitely keeping users more engaged than the desktop. The top 10% companies, that 90th percentile that we keep focusing in on, also had more than twice the engagement across both mobile and desktop. Another reason for product builders to focus more on that mobile experience. And then turning to paid ads conversion, it's not uncommon to see paid channels have a higher conversion rate. Even with a slightly more than 1% increase, it is still worth calling this out. This shows that targeting still worked for companies in 2023 because they saw better results than the unpaid counterparts, despite the tough environment. Oh, sorry. Marketers, however, are still struggling with attracting the right type of user and keeping them engaged. So with an average bounce rate of 77% across industries, this definitely calls for more collaboration between your product and marketing teams to understand that full user journey um, by measuring the effectiveness of all marketing efforts against the actual downstream product conversions. So kind of in conclusion here, we want to echo that what the co-founder at Human 37 says, Glenn Vanderlinden. More organizations are starting to understand that data needs to be democratized. They're using tools like Mixpanel to remove the hurdle and allow people to leverage data in their product, marketing, and overall business decisions. So yeah, that kind of concludes the session here. You can get the full report at mixpanel.com/benchmarks to take a look for yourself and do that deep dive. And now, since we have a little time left, wanted to just first of all thank you all for joining, and let's take a look at the chat to see if we have any questions.
Yeah, thanks. And first of all, Peter, thank you for taking us through all of that. It's really helpful. And yeah, just again, as a reminder to everybody, we'll make sure that you get the report as well as the recording after the fact. For anybody that wants to ask questions, feel free to load them in the Q&A. I have a couple questions here, and we probably have time for 2 or 3 questions, Peter. But I'm curious for you, going through, seeing what the data was 2022, then how it all went to 2023. What were there any surprises for you? You walked us through what some of those changes were. I'm curious if any of those changes were surprises, or kind of surprising to you when you saw the data come in.
Yeah, not I wouldn't say so much surprises. I think the median entertainment was maybe could fall into that category of yeah, sort of returning to that pre-pandemic level, which makes sense as the world has kind of gone back to normal a bit. So that was maybe one of the more interesting pop outs to me. But yeah, not as much surprise given just seeing across industries, seeing my customers have go through the tough year. So yeah, but definitely helpful just to put numbers to it and see what the magnitude of those what we felt in the market.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Obviously we haven't gotten through all of 2024. We don't have data points on 2024, at least in terms of survey data. But if we're thinking ahead a few months, like maybe it's a year from now, you and I are getting together and we're now putting on the 2025 version of product benchmarks, and we're looking back at what changed from 2023 to 2024. Do you have any predictions of what we might see? Again, this isn't necessarily survey data driven. This might be just anecdotes that you've seen throughout the year thus far. Where do you feel like things might be heading?
Yeah. I that's a tough one.
I know you can't see the
pull
future
out my
for sure,
crystal ball, but I do think that 2024 has felt just talking to customers at various events, and it does feel like things have gone a little bit back to normal, just in the changing interest rate environment, and things have just settled a little bit from this large reset. So I if I were to have to make a prediction, I think things are going to kind of return back to what we had been seeing before this big dip last year.
Yeah, I can understand. It does feel that way. Well, that's great. Maybe one last question. I asked this question at almost every single one of our sessions because there are a lot of data points, right? So we're learning a lot here. And again, if we forget things, we could go back and we'll look at the recording, look at the report. But even still, sometimes it's that last thing we hear that really sticks with us. So if there's one big takeaway that you hope people get from a session like this, what would you want them to walk away? What would you want that takeaway to be?
Yeah, I think that it's just what I see so often is sometimes maybe over focusing on one of these metric areas like acquisition or just retention or just engagement, and it's really the complete picture, like we were talking about, like where you really have to understand the full user life cycle to know whether your product and users are or whether your users are being successful with your product. You could see this huge MAU that's all from new users, and your retention is not great. That's not a sustainable long-term view. So it's getting that holistic view of all these metrics and how they tie together.
Yeah. No, that's great. I think it's a great way to end the session. So Peter, just once again, thank you so much for being a part of this. If now again, I know you will or your team will follow up with everybody. So we're going to share everything with them. If people have questions after the fact, I imagine you can share your contact info in that follow up too, and they can maybe ask you directly.
Yeah, and we do have a Mixpanel Slack community that you can join on our website as well. So you'll be able to find someone to talk to if you need help.
That's great. That's great. Well, Peter, once again, thank you for being a part of this with us. This was really helpful.
Yeah, thanks so much, Mike. Really great to be here.
Absolutely. And thank you everybody for taking the time. I will see you at our next session. Thanks, everybody.